All right. So Eric Nordgren is here with me this evening, so you guys get to see him um, tonight too. And I think when we talked, Eric and I would like to start off by just touching base about the Castle Branch information that he had sent out and kind of checking to see where everybody's at with that. And then once he does that, we will talk a little bit about the course and what you can expect going forward and how that kind of works. And then, of course, I'll open it up for any questions that you may have. So, Eric, do you want to start?
Yeah, I can jump in here quickly. Good evening, everybody, and glad to see you all here. I am just pulling up the Castle Branch information to take a look and see kind of where we're at. What I would say is we've set a due date in the course of the 29th of September, I believe, for those items to be completed. That gives us the leeway that we typically need to comply with site requirements as some of the sites do require that we get that in 4 to 5 weeks before experiences begin. Um, and I think generally speaking, the biggest question that I would have, or the thing that I'd like to know is if anyone has any specific questions, anything that you've run into that has been a challenge in terms of uploading documentation, tracking down your records, or otherwise. Well,
Hey,
hearing,
Eric.
go,
Sorry.
go,
Oh,
please.
I was just going to say that I need to follow up on mine. I've reached out to my employee health department and I still haven't heard back. So I know that that's probably going to be the easiest way for me to get what I need. So I'm going to follow up with them tomorrow. Hopefully they can help me.
Yeah, sounds good. And definitely, it's pretty easy to work with if you get. I mean, I've seen a lot of people who will just get like the one sheet printout, basically, or one sheet PDF, upload that into Castle Branch, and then attach it to the different requirements to meet all the things that are there. So it's not like you have to print out a separate page for everything or anything like that. It should be fairly easy to work with once you've got that, and hopefully that'll avoid having to follow up with your doctor's office for anything else too.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Yeah. Um, Also, I know that I will say just briefly, uh, I'm I've been busier than expected this summer for a variety of reasons and have not gotten as many updates out to folks as I would like to. So I will be by the end of this week making sure that everyone has a status check on where they're at in the placement process. There are still a number that we're working to confirm, um, and one way or another, we'll get something figured out to keep you moving forward with that. Any questions, if you don't mind me checking Katie on site placement right now?
Go ahead. Yeah.
I don't have any questions, but I'm not really sure if the preferred hospitals that I gave you or the preferred sites that I gave you, I'm not real sure that they participate in this kind of thing. I mean, I've never heard of it before, but it's possible that they could. And because I'm in a very rural area, I'm a little
Mhm.
concerned about finding placement.
Well,
So,
I'll tell you, we have a lot of sites that have done completely remote placements, and I would expect even if we can't find someone locally to host you, we'll be able to tap into someone else in our network that would be able to host remotely. So
Yeah.
don't worry too much about that. It's one of the benefits is that those places that are more remote, we've got a few more options now than we did um, pre-COVID, if you will.
Yeah.
So something
well,
will work out, whether it's one of those that you'd sent me or something where you'd be doing a virtual placement, if you will.
okay, awesome. That makes me feel better. Thank you.
Yeah. Um, Otherwise, if there are any specific site requirements, I'll be reaching out to folks probably within the next few weeks here to let you know what those are. Some sites ask for some additional documentation review orientation materials, kind of like a new hire checklist type of thing. And I'll work with you on a case by case basis to manage those. Otherwise, I'll continue to plow forward and get the updates out as soon as I have more information. And regardless, you should be hearing from me by the end of the week here.
All right. Thanks so much, Eric. Okay, so I'm gonna share my screen and we'll get so I just wanted to touch base with everybody, here tonight. And those that couldn't be with us can watch this recording, but I wanted to just provide a little bit of an overview of the course and what you can expect and kind of how it ties in with the actual PPE, and then the next course that you'll be taking, which is the seminar course. So let's just start off first with, I'll go in, my screen might look a little bit different than yours. So the first thing that we have is, right now we're in Unit 1. Typically, each unit spans a course of 2 weeks. Unit 3 will be a little bit longer at 3 weeks. And so you guys are here tonight. So I have it broken out into class attendance, reading assignments. I have some recordings, I hope you've seen, and then the assignments. And so next week we have the resume writing workshop, and Mary Anderson from Career Services will be joining us via Zoom. That one's a little bit earlier. Again, I'll be recording it, so if you just can't make it, don't worry, I'll post the recording, but of course I would like your presence just to interact and engage with Mary and to ask questions. So this is where in my initial introductory email to all of you prior to class starting, I asked you to please get your resume, at least pull it out, dust it off. If you don't have a resume, get something on paper. I feel like it helps as you're watching the resume writing workshop to kind of take notes and maybe even modify your resume while you're listening to Mary. So she gives some great tips. That is tied to the resume assignment that I have set up. So it's part one. Part one is where you're just basically going to email it to resumes@css.edu. They will provide you with some feedback on the resume, and then you'll submit once they give you your feedback, you're going to make changes based off of their recommendations and that feedback, and then you'll submit that as part two. Part one is basically just to tell me, hey, I submitted it, but it also lets me see what you started with for part one and where you end up with part two after you've made the changes. The Castle Branch items that are listed here, this item, so it's very colorful as you can see, but once you get all of the Castle Branch items completed, Eric is going to come in here and give you the points associated with this. This is to kind of help. The reason why we have points and have it set up as an assignment is that we really want it done by the due date so that everything kind of falls into place for your PPE, and so we can send you out on time, and everything is at our fingertips too. So when sites request it, we're able to give it to them, and so that's the rationale for this and why we have it set up as an assignment. But essentially, you don't submit anything here. This is just a place for Eric to come in and give you the credit for completing that. Some of you have already submitted your headshots, which is great. As I shared that in the messaging is if you have an on-site PPE, we'll use that to create a CSS name badge for you. But if not, and you have a virtual PPE, that's just fine. We still want a headshot because we send out kind of a packet, a virtual packet of information to our site mentors with your resume to give them information about your background so that they, if you've been working a release of information for 5 years, that they don't need to spend a ton of time on that, when you're on your PPE. So it gives them a sense of kind of where you're at in the HIM experience side of things. And then also to just let them know what you look like. So if they're meeting you at the door or virtually in a meeting room, they can identify you more quickly. So syllabus assignment. I've seen those coming through, and thank you to those of you that have done your introductions as well. So going on to the next item here, which is the HIPAA training. So this is a requirement for our program. It's part of our agreements that we hold with each of our PPE sites, that they understand that you're going to be coming to them with an understanding of HIPAA and, of course, privacy and confidentiality. And so this is set up where you have a lesson and then there's self-checks. The self-checks are not graded. You can take them up to 10 times, but it's just for practice. So watch the video and then take the self-check if you would like. At the end of completing each of the lessons, there is I know I'm trying not to make you guys dizzy here with my scrolling. There's a HIPAA final. And so with that, I require you to get 100%. If for some reason you don't get 100% within 3 tries that I give you, please let me know. I feel like there's one question on there that does stump students. And so please let me know if you get hung up on that and you need another attempt or whatever. So I will help you with that. Okay, so that was the HIPAA training, and that is part of Unit 1. Next, we have this Unit 2 Strength Finder. And as we go, I'm just gonna kind of touch on the assignments. I'm not gonna say too much going forward, but note that I have a link in here for the PPE manual, and that will be one of the things I want to touch base on with you tonight as well, just to kind of give you an introduction to the PPE manual and what's all in there. So, Unit 2, I think the main thing here is that resume assignment part 2 is due. So again, this is where Career Services will give you feedback. I want you to update your resume based on that feedback and then submit the final resume here. And this is what will be sent to your PPE mentor. Okay. Unit 3, we talk about the Benedictine values. We have a discussion on ethics. And then this assignment here, I'll point out, is the pre-PPE conference worksheet. This is a worksheet that I want you to complete because each of you will have a meeting one-on-one with me over Zoom as we get closer to your PPEs. And so what this worksheet really is a way for you to identify your own personal goals that you want to set for yourself or you have set for yourself for completing the PPE. So these can be personal goals, such as maybe working to become more confident, working on asking questions, working on networking, some of those things, to even to understanding a certain function of an HIM department better, or to better understand various aspects of management. Whatever those goals are, this is where you'll identify those. We'll also talk about on here, there's a place for you to identify areas of that you want to work on in terms of oh my gosh, I totally lost my train of thought. Where was I going with that? I should probably look at the worksheet. That might help me with my train of thought. Sorry. Your expectations. So we want you to think about, but areas of opportunity, and sorry, I know what it was. It was the concerns and worries. So if you have any concerns or worries about the PPE, this is a place for you to identify them. And then you and I will talk about them in this pre-PPE conference that we're going to have. And so as we get closer, I'll put out a sign-up sheet for that. It'll just be a one-on-one, like I said, meeting, just you and me, and it'll probably take about a half an hour, somewhere shorter than that. And then we wrap up the like coursework in Unit 4 with you having that meeting with me. There is a final exam, but it's mainly based off of the PPE manual, which I'll go into next. We have a leadership discussion, and then you will also, one thing I found is that it's really helpful for students to understand a little bit about the organization before they go into it. And so we have this PPE site exploration assignment where you'll do a little bit of research on the PPE site itself, just in preparation for your meeting with them. And I found that it really is helpful for the student when they're meeting with that PPE mentor that first time to really kind of shine in a sense too, showing that you know things about the organization, you're familiar with their mission and vision and values and those kinds of things. So any questions about the course before I go on to the PPE manual? Okay. All right. So the PPE manual, like I said, is linked in all of these. We need to get Eric. We need to get a new picture, Eric, of you uploaded here and me.
Yeah. On the
Eric.
to-do list, I got new professional photo taken last week, so maybe I
Awesome.
can get that in there.
Yeah. And I have much longer hair and, and things too. So, all right. So this is the PPE manual. Um, I just want to give you some highlights. I don't want to go into all of this because I have lectures in the course on this. But basically, this is what that final exam is going to be centered on, is your familiarity with the PPE manual and of course the content in it. So really what this does is kind of lay out all the expectations that we have for you while you're on your PPE. Okay, so here the basics we have, kind of how we pick PPE sites, if we have to terminate so just so you know, Eric and I do need to update this too. We used to call the PPE, there used to be different, several different types of PPEs, and this one we refer to as the affiliation PPE. So if you see the word affiliation, know that it's the PPE, it's what you're doing. So here's our background study policy and then student absences policy. So that's that. We also have a page here for mentor resources. We used to send out this really big packet of information. And so now we've gotten to this website where we can provide the mentors with all the information that they need right here. We have so everything from, so you have an idea of what we provide to the mentors. So we give them ideas on how to set up a schedule for all of you for your PPEs. We talk, oh, hold on one second. I got a couple people. I hope they haven't been waiting too long. There we go. We give them some ideas on, yeah, so schedules, virtual placement. We have some guidance for them there. We also provide them information on the project that you will all be completing while you're on your PPE. So with the PPE, you will all be completing a project. We give them the guidance that the project should take you approximately 20 hours to complete while you're on site. And so um, I have to be honest, this is probably the one thing that causes students the most anxiety about their PPE, because typically Eric and I don't know what that PPE project is going in to the PPE. But I will tell you that we've never had a student not be able to complete a PPE project. Students have always been very successful with them, and we found that our site mentors, they're not going to give you anything that you can't handle. So I'm just going to check the chat here. Oh, okay. All right. So sample projects, we do have a listing so you can get an idea of what students have done in the past. I need to update this with some more recent projects, but they haven't changed a lot over the last few years. Typically, they've kind of all been similar to what we've provided here as samples. We give them the course schema for where, the courses that you all take, so that they have an idea of what you've already taken and where you're probably at with your courses. So again, to help them plan the PPE for you. And then lastly, continuing education credits. They get 5 CEUs if they're AHEMA credentialed for hosting you. as a site mentor. And then other people that meet with you while you're on the site can also get CEUs. So, and then lastly, student resources. So this is probably the real nuts and bolts of this PPE manual and what will be the most important for you to familiarize yourself with. And that is primarily the content area interview questions. So these are here as a resource for you to ask. There's like general questions and then questions for different areas. So if you are meeting with, let's see what the first one. So if you're meeting with coding, here's some questions to kind of get you started and having a discussion with somebody working in the coding department. And so I'm not going to go through that in depth either, but the other thing is the final PPE report. So this is where you will get guidance on how to construct your final PPE report, and this will be due, everybody pay attention, this is due in the seminar course, which I believe all of you are taking spring 2, and so that will start probably March, I'm guessing, of 2024. And so you'll have time, obviously, from the end of your PPE to the start of spring 2 and the start of the seminar course to submit your final PPE report. It has 5 sections. One is a section on the PPE project that you complete while you're there. The second one is the content area essays. And it probably sounds kind of crazy right now, but it makes more sense if once you read it, you're basically developing 5 essays on different content areas that you observe while you're on site. You'll conduct a workflow analysis and redesign. There is a section on management and leadership principles, basically where you're assessing the management and leadership of your PPE mentor. And then there's the 5th section is a reflection paper. I have a 6th section here is exploration in case typically what I find is sometimes students that have virtual PPEs are not able to do a workflow analysis. So I have an alternative section that you can complete if that is the situation you're in. So it's a breakdown. Here you'll see each section is laid out with very specific instructions and expectations for what you should include in that. And then I also have a grading rubric for each of the sections as well. So I don't want to spend too much time on that. I don't want to overwhelm you with this because it is incorporated into the course. Make sure that you're watching those lectures and going through all that information um, as each unit outlines. So questions on that? I'm trying to get back to my course here.
Can I just add quickly
Yep.
that as you're looking at this too, all of those content area questions that are listed there, those are kind of as Kitty said, discussion starters. We're
Mm-hmm.
not expecting that you're going to answer every single one of those questions on site, and we're not expecting that you're going to stick just to that list because that can be kind of overwhelming, right, Katie?
Yeah. Yeah,
It's
definitely.
more use those to help yourself prepare as a starting point, and then it'll be a lot more of seeing where the conversation goes and how some of those other questions fit into guiding that.
Yep.
So don't feel like that's something that you're expected to tick every box, answer every one of them.
Right. And so kind of what the information that Eric was just talking about, I do cover that in all of these. So for example, in Unit 1, there's this watch the following. It's part 1, Introduction to the PPE Manual, the basics. So I go through the basics, that section of that website that we were just on. In Unit 2, I go over the mentor resources. And then in Unit 3, I cover the PPE Manual, which is PPE manual. I cover the student resources and then the final PPE report. So I have lectures on all of these. And so make sure that you are watching those, okay? And if you have any questions after watching those, please email me, okay? I'm happy to clarify any aspect of that manual that you need. So, um, what else do we need to talk about? Trying to think. Oh, I know. Okay. So the other thing that I'll touch on here as we wrap things up. By the way, for those of you that joined a little late, I'm sorry. I hope you weren't waiting too long in the waiting room, but I am recording this, and so I'll share that recording uh, later on this evening. I'll post it in my announcement. But so the course is, like I said, divided in my introductory announcement. I said the course is divided up into pre-PPE activities, and then we have PPE activities. So the pre-PPE activities are units 1 through 4. Okay. Then while you're on the PPE, you essentially have, you're going to be trying to cover a lot of the items that you need to address for the final PPE report. And of course, just having your experience, right? And completing that project. But there's only really one other thing that you need to do while you're there, and that is journal. Um, the PPE journal is basically a discussion forum, the way I have it set up here. Eric and I will monitor this. It's basically a way for he and I to just kind of stay caught up with what you're doing, what you're experiencing on your PPE. Um, and so I give you some writing prompts if you're stuck on what do I talk about here. It's fairly straightforward. So the PPEs are typically 2 weeks. Yours might, if you have an alternative schedule, that's fine. We are looking for 4 posts, 4 journal entries. So if you have a 2-week PPE, 2 the first week, 2 the second week, or however you want to do it, but basically looking for you to just share what your experiences, the highs, the lows, all of those things. Eric and I do really look forward to reading these. It's kind of fun, but it's also fun for your classmates to kind of see what you're up to as well. Okay. So that's one of the things that you will need to do while you're on your PPE. Then at the conclusion of your PPE, typically, I always say, like, so if it's a traditional PPE, I always send out the PPE evaluation to you. You have an evaluation, and then your mentor has an evaluation that they're going to complete on you. I usually send it out that second week, usually that Wednesday. And so you can kind of, just as a way to kind of um, know that that will be coming to you. So it's a Qualtrics survey. So I'll send you a link. Your survey is fairly short. It's basically just to kind of see how satisfied you are with the PPE, your experience, the mentor, and those kinds of things. Their evaluation on you is more of, like, I would liken it to kind of a job evaluation, essentially. Um, I'll be sharing what's included in that in the course, and so you'll see that. But basically, it's a way for them to assess how knowledgeable you are, how you're able to apply what you've been learning. Um, it also addresses your soft skills, so your ability to communicate, ask questions, those kinds of things as well. So, yeah, so they'll get that, like I said, midway through that second week. If it's a more of a different schedule that you're on, you can expect it to come, towards the end where you maybe have like 3 or 4 days left of your PPE. So I usually track that and email that out to them. So yeah, trying to think if there's anything else I need to cover tonight. Eric, did you want to add something?
I'd just say that we really appreciate any feedback we get on sites too, good,
Oh,
bad,
yeah.
or otherwise, because we often go back to the same sites when we can. And so knowing if something was a really great experience, we'll definitely steer students toward that again in the future. And if it maybe didn't meet the expectations, we might work with mentor to try and see if we can improve things for the future. And Katie's got things about what to do if there are that are embedded in the course if something comes up during the experience itself. So don't worry about that either. You won't ever be out on a just out on your own there. We're here to help you from start to finish on this thing.
Yeah. Yeah, so in Unit 4, we actually have like an assignment on different scenarios and kind of how to handle that. And I also have a lecture in that final unit as well on just some different things regarding, if you have issues and how I would like you to handle that. Um, so we try our best to prepare you for every situation. But I will tell you that we have very few issues. And so don't be worried about that. I mean, we've had a couple over the years, but for the most part, our PPEs go very well and students come away really satisfied with their experiences and learning a lot, honestly. We've had some really amazing projects for our students and many of our mentors are alumni of our program. And so that's always a great experience for our students too, to connect with somebody that's been through the program and is familiar with us. So I think the only other thing I wanted to just pull up here is the course calendar, which is, by the way, linked in all of the units within Brightspace. And so if you haven't had a chance to look at this, please do, but it's just kind of like a way for you to see everything from a high level, right? I have all of our assignments and due dates on here. I also have, for example, tonight's uh, Zoom session and then next week's resume writing workshop and the Zoom link. And so it's broken all out for you. But one thing I did want to mention as well is I do have a couple, I'll be out of the office. Um, Eric and I both attending the AHEMA conference in Baltimore in October. And so I actually learned this morning or earlier today, that Nicole Phillips is going to be there at the conference. And so if any of you are going to be there, please let Eric and I know because we'd love to meet you in person. And so we will have a booth at in the exhibitor hall. We're going to have a CSS HIM reception that we would love to have you join us at. And so just let me know, but I will also make an announcement once I have the details on the reception for all of you. I'll make an announcement with that as well. So if you happen to be there, but let me know, give me a heads up. And so here I'm hoping to have pre-PPE meetings with all of you the 29th and 30th of October. And so like I said, I'll be sending out a sign-up sheet so you can sign up for the time that works best for you to meet with me as we move a little bit closer to that date. And then our PPEs begin November 6th. And I have this like just all blocked out because PPEs will happen, who knows what our PPE sites require and what works with your schedules. It used to be where we only did PPEs like, these 2 weeks, but people's jobs have changed and just the way things are going with virtual PPEs and how busy our mentors are. And so not more that non-traditional schedule is becoming more common. So where students are having their PPE a couple of days a week. So we wrap up the course. Essentially, if for some reason your PPE does not get wrapped up by the last day of the term, we will give you a in progress grade and you'll be able to finish that up. So don't stress about the PPE and getting it done within the term if for some reason the site can't accommodate you during our time frame. And so it'll wrap up. And like I said, you have from the end of this term, so December 21st through to spring 2 to work on that PPE report. One thing I will say now, and you'll see this in my lectures about the PPE manual, but I do not give you time in seminar to complete the PPE report, okay? It's something that I'm expecting you to work on while you're, completing your PPE through the end of the term and leading up to the PPE. You'll have a few weeks where you can work on it, but I'm not going to give you like dedicated time because we have other things in that course that I want to cover, okay? Or need to cover, I should say. And so that PPE report will need to be done before the start of that seminar class. So last thing I will say about that is don't procrastinate because it will not help you. You will forget what you learned. So something to think about as you're preparing for the PPE is how are you going to take notes? What works for you? You know, um, because you think about it, you're going to have like, you have to write 5 essays about just different things, whether that's an area that you found really interesting or a project that they are undertaking or something unique about the site. Um, you'll be writing about. So you're going to want to take good notes so you remember that and you can develop those essays. For your reflection, you'll want to take notes on unique experiences and things that you took away and learned. Some of those things you're going to have to create um, an organizational chart. And so you want to make sure you're taking good notes on that and how they have their department and organization structured. So be thinking about that in the time being as well, like how you want to take notes. Are you, do you want pen and paper or you're gonna use your laptop or if you're in person, how are you gonna work that? So some things to think about there. All right. Any last questions or anything I can cover for you?
If we have not already received our site visits, when should we expect those?
As soon as I can get them established. It's something that I'm still working on for a handful of folks here. I've run into a few spots where sites have said they have other schools they're already working with and can't accommodate in the fall. So looking to second, third, fourth, fifth options for some of the folks out there. Um, again, hopefully, I'd like to give you a firm date of exactly when I'll know. I can't give that with certainty, but we'll keep you moving one way or the other. A non-answer answer.
Thank you.
Yeah, one thing you should do is to PPE medical consulting firm.
I'm so sorry, Jessica, you're breaking up, so we can't really, unless Eric, could you understand?
Nope.
Okay, I'll type it.
Okay, thanks, Jessica. What other questions do you guys have? I threw a lot of information at you, so.
I'm sorry I was late. Did you go over Castle Bridge or Castle Branch? I'm sorry,
Yeah.
not Castle Bridge. I'm sorry.
Eric touched on it, but go ahead and ask your
Okay.
question, Jennifer.
No, I mean, everything is due by the 29th of this month, correct?
Yep.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Jessica,
yeah.
medical consulting firm. We have not done a placement with that. I would say there are a couple of things that are considerations for a site that would host students. One is we try to find someone who's a credentialed AHIMA member. We don't necessarily require a specific credential, RHIT versus RHIA. Because depending on where you're at in the country, there are kind of different standards and expectations around that. The other part is kind of I would say the amount of activities that are HIM related that site would be completing. So some sites simply just don't have the staff, the bandwidth to really accommodate and support that. What I would suggest, if you do have a site that you might be interested in pursuing, we can definitely reach out to them and have a conversation about what it might look like. There's another, actually a consulting firm that we're working with that's going to host a student this fall. where I shared the PPE manual with them. They took a look through it, were able to develop a schedule, a project proposal, send it back, and Katie and I could take a look at that and say, yep, this definitely meets what our expectations are, full steam ahead. So if you want to share the information with me, Jessica, I'd be happy to reach out and have a conversation if you have someone specific in mind there.
No, not yet. I was just curious. If I find one, I'll let you know.
Perfect. Okay. All right. Well, if there's no last questions, I will let you all go. I'm going to check the chat really quick here one last time. No. Okay, we're good. So, thank you all for joining me tonight, and I look forward to meeting with all of you and working with all of you this term. The PPE is a really exciting time. So, everybody's experience is going to be unique, and Eric and I just love working with all of you to kind of see where you grow and where your interests are at the end of it, and all of those things. So it's really a great and exciting time. So, all right, thank you all. Have a great evening.
Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thanks.